Sometimes I get this feeling that life is passing by me. I mean, I'm happiest when I'm being creative, but for some reason I wasn't making any time for it. I was procrastinating in every possible way just to avoid looking at that scary, empty white page. Well, this year, it's time to change that. Hi, my name is Claudia, and this year I want to challenge myself to honor my creativity and stop being so harsh on myself. I want to learn, try new things, and grow as an artist. And I'm bringing you with me. In today's video, I'll be creating my first ever sketchbook spread while using alcohol markers for the first time. I'll share my honest thoughts about the Ohuhu markers. And this video is not sponsored in any way, although I wouldn't mind a sponsorship from Ohuhu, since, spoiler alert, I love these markers. I feel very proud of how this spread turned out, especially consider that this is my first time ever using this particular sketchbook, alcohol markers, and I'm recording myself during the process, which always adds that little extra cortisol in my body. But before we get to the process of this spread, let's open the markers for the first time. I'll be opening this set of 200 Ohuhu markers first. This set of brushes comes with a dual tip. One of them is a chisel and the other side has a fine tip. This helps with the variety of the strokes. Okay, let's open the markers. Wow,
This is a dream.
creativity at my fingertips.
I can make any choice I
Wait,
want.
I have to make
No
choice.
one said anything about choice.
What color do I choose first?
So pretty.
What do I
What
draw?
if I fail?
Ah! As soon as I open the markers, my mind starts racing. The creative juices are going through it. Of course, I also get hit by some initial fear of failing, of wasting my new art supplies, but I need to push myself out of that. So many times it happens to me that I'm really excited about making art, but then I get hit with this silly fear of not being able to make my best work. The thing is, if you don't push past that, you'll never get any work out there, and you will never achieve the level of art you want. So it's time to push myself to make pieces I might not be so happy with, and that is okay. Not every drawing we make will be groundbreaking or up to our own standards. We need to remind ourselves that art is supposed to be fun. When I was a kid, I would not care if a drawing was good or bad. I would just draw for the joy of being creative. But once I started being noticed and praised for my drawings, I started putting this silly pressure on myself of only showing my best work. And I started fearing failure. This led me to create less and less until at one point in my life, I didn't draw anything for fun for maybe more than a year. But this year, I want to feel the joy of being creative once again. I want to fail, make mistakes, learn, and share my journey. I want the freedom of being patient and kind with myself when I'm making art. This is why I'll be challenging myself with different mediums, and today it's alcohol marker day. So let's go back to that. With this set of markers, you get a plastic sheet that you put behind the paper to prevent it from transferring into another page, which is pretty nice. You also get these color sheets, which I found super helpful for choosing colors while you're painting. It allows you to keep all your color choices close by. And you also get this booklet full of cool info. I decided that the first thing to do was to swatch the markers and see all my color choices. This part was pretty repetitive, so I'll just share with you my struggles and what I learned. For context, the color swatches have all the numbers and names for all the markers in the case, and they're organized and grouped by color. Of course, I didn't know that they were organized like this at first, so my first mistake was trying to find the first number and name listed on the sheet and pick out the matching marker from the case. I quickly realized that this was gonna take forever. So I changed my approach and I chose a marker and saw the number and name that were on the cap and tried finding it on the sheet. However, this also took too long until it hit me like a pillow to the face that the letter and the number showed the different categories of color. So all the blues start with a B, all the greens with a G, reds with an R, and so on. Once I noticed this arguably obvious thing, the process of swatching went really smoothly. I loved all the colors this set has to offer. My only complaint is that the caps of the marker don't match the ink that the marker has almost at all. So keeping that color sheet close by is a must for picking colors. I also like to keep a little piece of scrap paper so I can test the marker out before putting it in my piece. Once I finished with the swatching, I organized my markers by color and got to sketching. Another thing I'll be trying in today's video is this new sketchbook that I've been super excited to try for a really long time. This is a Strathmore Mixed Media Series 500 with a hardcover. It's supposed to handle mixed media pretty well, and alcohol markers look really good in it, although they bleed quite a bit through the paper. However, that's not really an issue for me, so I got to sketching. Let me know if you would like me to share more of my opinions on this sketchbook in another video, or if you have any mixed media sketchbook recommendations, I would love to hear them. Oh, by the way, all of the references that I'll be using in today's video come from Pinterest. So I'll be leaving my Pinterest information in the description below, just if you're interested in practicing with the references as well. This first sketch is a cautious one. Without noticing, I made this sketch quite small. I feel I was a bit shy about the camera being there and me not knowing how to use the markers, but I'm so proud I moved past that and captured my first ever attempt with these markers. Then I placed this plastic sheet of paper that you get with the marker set behind the sketch, and I started the process of choosing the markers that I was gonna use. This took me a little bit of time since I wasn't really used to it by this point, but it got faster and faster the more portraits I drew. I was a little bit afraid to start, to be honest with you. I knew I wanted to focus on the undertones of the skin. The first thing I did was start with a very light color of the undertone of the skin, and then I used the colorless blender sort of to soften it even more, which I feel was a little bit of a mistake because you're gonna see this drawing turn out really patchy, but it's okay, it's the first one ever, and I was just having fun and experimenting and trying and not really worrying so much about the end result, but enjoying the process. I feel like the only way that we can improve and get better is just getting past our fears and just trying it out. Like, it's nothing bad is gonna happen if this is not the best drawing in history. It's my first time ever trying, and it's okay if it's patchy, it's okay if it's a bit weird looking. It doesn't really matter. It's for fun. We live in a rock space, so I can just have fun with my markers. I ended up being very proud of this drawing, even though it's incredibly patchy, just because it was the first time that I've ever worked with these markers, and I felt just pumped to continue, so I immediately started a second sketch. Once again, this image comes from Pinterest, and I will leave my Pinterest information down in the description so you can see all of the reference that I use. As you can see, I like to start a sketch really light, and I like working with a red erasable pencil much more than with a graphite pencil, because I feel like when you're gonna color on top of the color pencil, it smudges much less than a graphite pencil does. In this second sketch, I also wanted to try out a new thing that I've seen a lot of artists that I like do. And basically this is just softening the lines a little bit with a knitter eraser. This makes it a little bit harder for you to see, but it's cool because the sketch doesn't really show up on your end result. So now that I did that, it's time to start with my second one. This sketch I made a little bit bigger, and I was already feeling much more confident. So I decided to go for the chisel tip and try and make bold marks. As you can see, I hesitate quite a lot. I try to put the cap. It's just my instincts telling me like, oh no, this is too big. This is too, it's not gonna turn out well. It's just me getting in my own way. It's funny, I just decided to stick with my chisel tip and just try to go for bold marks. Just having fun and enjoying the process. So first I did all the outline, and then I just fill in the whole thing. I was a bit concerned at this point because I thought like, it's also looking a bit patchy, but then I realized the alcohol markers sort of settle into the page. So it might look a bit patchy at first, but once you start adding color on top, then it just, I don't know, it gets fixed. It's They're incredible. I love these markers. Also, these markers are a very cheap alternative to, for instance, Copic markers. The quality is insane. The colors are just so vibrant. It is so fun to work with. The fact that you have so many options is just, I'm a big, big fan. Once again, I went back with the colorless blender. Honestly, I feel like I learned after this video that maybe it's best to not use the colorless blender that much. On my later portraits, I don't use it almost at all. Now I'm trying to add a base color for the hair, also using the chisel tip, as you can see, very bold, very, very daring. The cool thing about the alcohol markers is that they basically build on top of the marks. So I put a base color with this same flesh sort of tone, and now that it's dry, I can go on top of it and start making little marks to create shadows and the depth of the skin. And I just continue to build this way. I continue trying to find the colors that I see in the undertones of the skin and just trying to be bold with my marks, not really caring about the result, but just having fun during the process. Now that I have more of a base, I wanted to move on to a bit darker, bolder marks. So I decided to add the darker colors that I saw. I also wanted to challenge myself to leave these sketches like open-ended and just having them feel a bit loose. Once I had all the base colors set with the marker, I took out my Prismacolor set of colors and I decided to use them to clean out my drawing, add details, maybe add more colors in the skin. I feel like a goal for me would be to eventually not rely so much on my color pencils, but since this was my second time ever trying these markers, I just decided to cut myself some slack and bring out my colors and just have fun. Once I was happy with how everything was looking, I took out my white gel pen and my acrylic marker, and I just added some finishing details and some highlights. Okay, so you're not gonna believe this, but while I was recording this video, the postman rang on my door, and I got this set of 48 markers as another Christmas present from my parents. And I was so excited because this set also comes with a dual tip. Only this time it comes with a chisel tip and a brush tip, which I've heard is super cool for blending colors. When you open this set, you also get this little book with cool info and the plastic paper to avoid bleeding through. And I quickly got to swatching these markers as well to see the color selection. And I must say, in this set, you also get a wonderful selection of color. And now I was even more excited to continue drawing. So here's another sketch. This one I decided, okay, now you've tried 2 times. It's time to go big or go home. So I decided to make the biggest sketch that I've made on this sketchbook yet. While I was making this sketch, I reached a point where I felt like I just couldn't really make this sketch. There was something that was off. I couldn't see what it was. I was just like lost in the sketch. I think I was just way too excited about trying the markers, so I was just sort of skipping through a lot of things, just making it really fast. But I just wasn't very happy with how my sketch was looking. And the best tip that I can give you, or the thing that works for me the best, is just to close the sketchbook, get up your chair and go for a walk, or just leave the room completely, but close the sketchbook and go take a rest, do some yoga, maybe, I don't know, scroll on your phone, do whatever you want, but just get away from the sketchbook. This makes it so when you come back, you have a fresh set of eyes, and then it's much easier for you to see the mistakes, because what happens is that when you're looking at a sketch for a really long time, your brain sort of is not very objective about what it's seeing. So then it becomes really hard for you to see the areas where you might have it a little bit off. But if you take a break and then come back, I promise you're gonna be able to find those mistakes and just fix them. It's gonna be much easier. So I decided to go for a walk. And when I was back, I just rolled up my sleeves and got back to work. I realized that there was something about the eyes that was just off. So I decided to take my pencil again and just measure the angle on my reference and measure it against my drawing. The first one that I took was perfect, but in the second one, I realized that one of the eyes was just much smaller than it needed to be. So I went ahead and I just fixed that. I was just continuing to slowly measure the angles and build up my sketch. I feel like that as artists, we have a little bit of a bad relationship when it comes to making mistakes. We sort of feel like we failed or something. But I feel like the best thing to do is just to stand up and be kind to yourself, come back to the drawing and just realize that if you made a mistake, it doesn't really matter. It's your drawing. You can try again. It's not the end of the world. And the harsher you are on yourself, the less you're gonna feel like drawing. Drawing needs to be something that is fun. So I try to see my mistakes as just something that happens along the way. If I feel like my sketch is a bit off, I just, like I said, close it, get out, and then when I come back, it's always so much more refreshing for me to try and battle with my sketch. If you start feeling frustrated also, the art is not really gonna come out as you want it, so just take a few minutes to collect yourself and come back when you don't feel frustrated. So I continue to work on my sketch like this. When I moved to the mouth, I realized that the whole head was just a little bit small. The mouth wasn't gonna fit because the mouth was opening and I just needed to move the chin a little bit down. So I just erased everything and I continued working. And this right here is a water break. This is the moment where you should go ahead and just drink some water. Stay hydrated. Okay, moving on with the art. I placed the plastic sheet behind my sketchbook page once again, and I was determined to be very bold in this drawing. So I softened the lines a little bit and I moved on with my chisel tip marker just to add the base colors. I realized that I liked making some sort of outline for where the marker will go, where the color would go. So it makes it easier. Then I just fill it in. Once it's dry, you can go ahead with the same color and just start adding the shadows where they go. And little by little, you start building it up. And this is the first time that I use the brush tip. It's just such a clean, nice line. I just love these markers. They're insanely cool. Another thing that I realized about the brush markers is that it allows you to have like much bolder lines, whereas the other set allows you to make bolder marks. This one is just cool for like little details like this in the hair. I knew that I wanted to leave the head open and just sort of give it an unfinished look because I really wanted it to feel like a drawing, much more than, I don't know, like a super realistic drawing of a woman. So with a really dark marker, I decided to just start adding where I saw the darker places and just define the hairstyle a little bit. And when I was happy with that, I moved on once again to my Prismacolor set of colors. And I just started cleaning out my drawing a little bit with the colors and adding the undertones that I saw and all of the little details I saw. I realized that I really enjoyed this technique of making a base color with the markers and then layering on top with color pencil. It's so fun to work like this. I would like to get to a point where I don't need to use as much color pencil, but I feel like I have to just keep on practicing like this, and little by little I'll feel more and more comfortable with the markers. But at the end of the day, this was just my third ever drawing with alcohol markers. So I decided to just, like I said, cut myself some slack and have fun and just enjoy the process and not be hard on myself, just have fun. And I am so happy with how everything turned out. From the first drawing that now we can see that objectively it's a bit worse than the second one and the third one and eventually than the fourth one. But it's part of the process and that's why I love it. So I just continue to work this way and adding different colors and tones into the skin just to make it more interesting looking, following my reference closely to see all the colors that I see in her skin. When I was happy with how it was looking with the colors, I decided to take out my micron pencils and try out to add the darker spot with micron, just to give it a bit more contrast. I also took out my acrylic white marker and I used it to add highlights into my drawing. Acrylic marker was much better than a gel pen. I just feel like the white is much more pure. So I definitely will continue using acrylic marker for my highlights. And here I'm adding just some finishing touches with my Prismacolors and keep working on it until I'm happy with it. I was so happy with the result and I immediately jumped into another sketch. I wanted this one to be the biggest one and I wanted to experiment with bold, different colors. I really wanted this one to look very colorful, so I chose a reference with a very colorful eye makeup, also from Pinterest. You can find it in the description down below. But I did exactly the same process. I started out by adding the base with my markers, and once I was happy with that base, I moved on to my Prismacolor color pencils and I started adding all of the fine details and different tones on their skin. Once I was happy with the color part, I took out my micron pens once again and my acrylic white marker to add the highlights and the finishing touches. Once I finished the fourth portrait, I felt so proud and happy that I pushed myself past my fear of failing and wasting these new art supplies. I felt really proud of how each portrait turned out, and I also love that you can see some improvement from the first one I did to the second, to the third, and to the fourth. Now that I was finished and pumped, I wanted to turn this spread into more than just 4 portraits floating in space. So I took a photo of the sketchbook and used Procreate to plan out what my spread could look like. I took my time and thought of colors, shapes, and overall composition, and once I was happy with it, I got to finishing my spread. The making of this whole video was so encouraging and freeing. It allowed me time to be creative for the fun of it. I even took my scissors out and collaged a bit to finish this spread. It was really the best feeling ever. I want us to have the courage of having fun with our art. So allow yourself time to be creative without any expectations for the result. And remember that art is supposed to be a way of expressing yourself, a way of meditation, of connecting with yourself. So just try to enjoy the process and see any mistakes as stepping points in your art journey. I want to challenge you to get out of your comfort zone and try to draw something that you've maybe never drawn before. Or take out that art supply that has been sitting in your drawer for some time and have fun with it. And that's it. This is how my spread turned out. And I find it so interesting to have the first drawing that I've made with alcohol markers right next to the fourth one and seeing such a big, I would say, improvement. I just started feeling much more comfortable with them. I feel like something that had to play a big role on me feeling comfortable was my own perspective on how I was tackling each drawing. I really was trying very hard to not focus on what went wrong or how to fix one thing. I was just trying my best to have fun and enjoy the process and just be creative. And I feel like having this perspective really helped me face my fears of failing with alcohol markers, and it allowed me to get to a point where I'm very proud of this spread. So that's it. My finishing thoughts on alcohol markers are incredible. You should definitely try them. I'm a big fan. I feel like I will become obsessed with them very severely. I will say that having the sheets of swatches is incredibly helpful, and it just helps you choose colors much quicker when you're in the process of being creative and having fun. Just because, like I said, the tip of the color really doesn't match that well the color that it actually has. So it's very difficult to choose a marker out of the case on its own without keeping this in mind. I also realized that I like keeping a little piece of paper right next to my drawing so that I can just test the marker right before I put it on my drawing, just to make sure that it's the color that I want. That's also one good tip that I can give you. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever tried alcohol markers? Because I've been like dying to try them for a really long time. I was just afraid for some reason. I just thought I was gonna fail at them. I thought I was gonna just not be good. I don't know, artist block. We all suffer from it probably. Or is it just me? I don't think it's just me. And so that's it. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you found it helpful or fun. And if you did, you can do me a favor and you can like and subscribe. Okay, see you.